we both as we've talked, we've been in the pastor role. Me 6 years. You, what was your years again?
Right at
14,
right at
16,
16.
16. So,
Yeah.
but we both pastored through the COVID year,
Yeah.
um, and we want to talk about that a little bit. We know that. Uh, well, I could speak personally for myself. That was a difficult year to pastor. Um, had to make many adjustments that never had to make before. And let's just talk about that experience a little bit, Eric, about when, that really, I don't know how, I can't think of how long it was, maybe 6 months there where we had to pastor through COVID and in different aspects and different ways and things. Both of us have been to Bible college, things that Bible college didn't teach us,
All right.
nor, nor,
Absolutely.
nor did they teach anybody. Everyone had to
Yeah.
kind of figure that out a little bit. So, what was your experience like pastoring through COVID?
Well, it was one of those things that you just kind of had to feel your way through it. You wanted to take it seriously, while also relying on biblical principles. It's really easy. I guess people don't even talk about COVID much today. I mean, it was so shoved down our throats for 2 years. People are just sick of it, and people hardly even mention it anymore, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of easy now on this side of it to look back and say, well, maybe we should have done this or should have done it that way. But you didn't have that luxury going through it. You had to just do what you thought was best. And that's how I approached it. It was a tough time, and things were coming at you left and right. You didn't know what to believe. It seemed like the story on it changed every week. Every time they had a press conference, you didn't know what to believe. And here, you're the pastor of this congregation, and you sure don't want to do anything to put them in needless danger. So it was tough to wade through. Just tried to do the best you can with it. So kind of, what was your approach on it? How did you move into that?
Well, I can say this going into COVID is that I, through so the church I pastors in a rural community. I'm about I have a little distance of a drive to get there. Not too bad. I mean, it's a 15-minute drive for me, but it's in a rural community. So when it would snow, that was some of the hardest decisions I had to make was, okay, are we going to have church or have we not going to have church? What do the parking lot look like? Is someone going to slip and fall? And is there going to be something that happens and I'm going to kind of be responsible for? So those are always some of those hard decisions that I've had to make in the past with some men at the church. But then here comes COVID. And I pastor a church that has several elderly people in it. And you don't know what this disease is. You only hear what, like you said, what changes on the news every day about it. And so you're trying to navigate waters that I guess kind of like Mr. Shattuck there in the ocean at night, kind of navigating waters in the dark. That's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, let's just survive. Let's just survive this as a church. Let's try to survive this. And goodness gracious, there were so many things. Like, for example, our church doesn't have the internet. We're a rural church. There wasn't a need for it, and so I didn't have the luxury going to church and recording sermons. So I had to turn my makeshift office into a place to preach
Yeah.
during that time every Sunday and Wednesday night, so that we could get out onto the social media and things, some form of sermons to kind of keep our people fed. Because looking back, and I know you can't look back and, like you said, it's hard to look back and say I would have done this or done that. But what I can say is, looking back, I can see the spiritual harm that it did on a lot of people. I can see where it affected people, and uh, we're years past that now, but can just now see them kind of getting their head back above water spiritually from the effect that took on. Because I mean, the reality is this, and it's not a good reality, but this is the reality that most people that sit in the pews, the only thing biblical they're hearing is what their pastor says on Sunday morning. You have a handful that are reading their Bibles through the week and things like that. But I mean, we just live in a culture where that's not a church culture where that's very prevalent anymore. And
Yep.
so when people are relying on a pastor to feed them every week and they're not feeding themselves through the week, you can expect spiritual atrophy to happen after a thing like COVID. Now, what did you do, Eric, when that happened and kind of realized that, okay, we're not going to be able to meet for a little bit? How did you approach that?
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, you're kind of torn when that happens because in one way you're thinking, hey, let's just meet
Right.
and trust the Lord, and maybe you look at it that way. But then, like you said, with the snow, our church, when it snows, if it's bad out here at all, I don't want to ask people to come because I know they'll try to come, and if somebody falls and breaks the hips one time because of me, because I told them it was okay, then that's on me. So I kind of had to look at it from that perspective. And as we plowed through it, we do have some members who are on the internet and on social media and things, but really, I would say a majority are not.
Yeah, we were kind of the same way.
Yeah, so it was actually a lot more work on me than usual because we would do a sermon. Sometimes the folks that lead the music would come on a different time and we would record them, and I'd have to learn how to splice things together and make videos and put that on the internet. And then on top of that, for the people that didn't have internet, we were on the local radio every Sunday afternoon we had like a 15-minute spot where I would kind of condense my sermon and put that out there for those people. So that way everybody would have access to it one way or the other. So, I mean, it's more than doubled the work, but I just tried to make sure that everybody had access somehow, is all I knew to do to the weekly preaching of God's word.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way we did things too. I mean, we put everything on the internet, of course, and then my wife's a rock star when it comes to stuff like this, and she was a school teacher, so they were out of school too. So we just took a full advantage of that, and we'd get the kids done with the stuff they needed to do early, and we would just jump right in with figuring out how to do ministry. And she was good about cooking things for people, and dropping treat bags off in mailboxes and all of that stuff. Of course, doing that very sanitized.
Yeah,
that was a worry, but just trying to keep in contact with everyone in unique ways. And I'm kind of like you. I kind of learned. I guess I got a grassroots street level degree in video and audio.
Yeah,
all that.
You're good at it now.
Learned how to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was just trying to find unique ways to pastor people for a season, unlike we've ever had. And I think I was trying to sit here and think of when we came back. Of course, I think everybody shut down around April. If I'm thinking right, kind of in April there, they made everybody in Kentucky shut down. And then I think we came back, I think at the end of May, and we were off and on through the summer. But we got hit hard in September. I remember towards the end of September, I think somebody in the church got it, and it ran through our church pretty good. And we were out for a little bit, and I just thank the Lord, no one got it really bad in that first time.
Yeah.
But and everybody got through it okay. But I will say this: a couple things. COVID changed our church. It changed it in these few ways. When the dust settled and the doors were back open, it was almost like a weird cleansing, I guess you could say, if that makes sense.
Yeah. just let me add to what you're going to say, or I think you're going to say.
Yeah, go for
it. Is I kind of looked at it as COVID, just kind of nationwide, really seemed to give people an opportunity who didn't want to be there.
Yeah,
gave them an opportunity to not be there.
Yeah, you said that faster than I was going to.
Well, so
thanks for that.
Well, say it how you were going to say it, but that's something that I mean, for sure that there's a lot of people in churches that are just going through the motions. I mean, like with a lot of things in life, and I think this just opened the door for people to have an excuse to leave or to not be as frequent or things like that. And because that happened, it's like it just gave them the green light to do that.
Right. You're right. And I mean, it just like I was going to say, it's just the Lord using that to knock the, to cleanse the church a little bit, to get the goats out of the pen. You know what I mean? And I hate to say it like that, but yeah, that's what things like that do. Tribulation, trials, that's what they're for. And that, I think that's kind of what happened. And let me ask you this, and I've thought about this a lot for myself. How did, and I'm going to ask two questions, and you can answer them at different times. One, how did COVID change the way that you pastor now that you didn't before? And then number two, what was it like pastoring through COVID and your, I don't know really how to say it, your emotions, your feelings, I mean, as a pastor, it kind of makes you feel very inadequate.
Yeah.
You've been called by God to do something and you can't do it.
Yeah. Just going through it, it didn't feel like enough, which it's not enough, because we weren't getting to gather and people would watch online and different things like that. But that's not gathering as the church. And I could feel that and know that, and was very aware that there needed to be more, but you didn't really know what to do about it. So that was just kind of a strange funk, a strange limbo to be in. As far as what's different now, I think in a lot of ways at this point, I've kind of got back to pretty much how I was before. I guess I became more aware of people needing to be reached out to, things like that. So maybe a little bit of a perspective change, but as far as practical things, it's not a ton different from my perspective. Now, as far as the church goes, like we've just kind of consolidated some things. We're down to, like, we have one Sunday school class that that goes to Sunday school is part of now. Meet in a out in the fellowship hall, because there was more room there, and that just kind of stuck. So we're not off in these little enclosed areas and things. So just little things like that 5 years ago, it looks different now than it did back then. Just the way we function like that, just little things.
Yeah. Did COVID help you tip over some sacred cows that may have been standing?
We do not have a bulletin anymore, which has been a blessing, because I was the one that did the bulletin as well. So that is off of me. We put the stuff up on the screen. Don't have a bulletin. We don't have greeters at the door anymore, which I wouldn't mind. If people wanted to greet, that'd be fine. We don't do that. And also, one other thing is we don't do the offering plate passing. We have a three boxes pretty much on the different exits that people can
Mhm.
give into. And I actually like that better because I just kind of feel like that's more biblical, because it's more, yeah, the Bible says don't let your one hand know what the other's
Yeah.
doing, to not make a pretty much a spectacle of your giving. And that just helps people to give more in private. And so things like that are different as far as the service goes. Also, and I guess the big one, at the end of the service, kind of, we didn't really have an altar call kind of thing, but I would always stand in front, at the end after the sermon, at that last song, if anybody wanted to come forward to whatever, pray.
Yeah.
Throughout COVID, that changed, and I've moved 5 feet to the left, and I'm in a pew now,
Okay.
singing with the congregation, which
Okay.
I much so prefer, because as we close the service out, it's like a congregational praise, a congregational
There you go.
affirmation. So it's like I get to be part of that now,
Yeah.
and still encourage people, if you have any questions, come on.
Yeah.
But really, so offering, bulletin, greeters, and the way we close the service are all different now.
Okay.
What about you?
That's good.
Anything stick out to you?
Well, the big thing we changed is how we do Bible school. I talked about this once in a lost episode, that I was able through COVID, because the time was near to scrap the material that we used and just write it myself and make it fit our church. So that was probably the big thing for me, kind of just getting that under my under what I wanted to be taught, and kind of oversight. Trying to think, we changed our how we do our Wednesday night stuff after that, just programs and things like that got them more in line with where they needed to be, I thought. Apart from that, not much that I can think of right off the top of my head. I can't say this though, as far as myself, it was hard going through COVID as a pastor, because you were just so inadequate. You felt like you never were doing enough. And I mean, I was blogging, I was making a video every time I thought I need to make a video, like a just insane amount. And working, like you said, it felt like that we tripled our time in work just trying to do a little bit. But for me and my pastoring and my preaching, I could say it made me see the urgency by which we as pastors need to be teaching the Bible, just the Bible, to help our people know, to put that foundation under their feet, that when the rains and the storms come, it doesn't wash away, that there's something there that they can stand on. It kind of did that for me, because like COVID changed church so much, changed attendance so much, and it just kind of put that burden on me. It had been there, but kind of reassured that, and reaffirmed that for me.
Yeah, I kind of see, in a lot of ways, if you want to start pulling positives out of what came out of COVID, church for me kind of seems more like everybody's more focused on the basics and the main thing now.
Yeah.
And not so much all the extracurricular things. So I think that's a blessing.
Yeah, because one thing that did happen was, for the rest of that year, we cut off everything that was not Sunday morning worship, and we got back into Wednesday night and Sunday night. But for everything else, like every kind of extra fellowship thing we did, and those things are good; they have their place. I like a good Baptist meal, but we just did away with that for the rest of the year, and it was good that when we came back together, we were just gathering under the word. It was good to do that.